Oh, damn it. How do I always get myself in these situations? Alright, I'm here. What are we doing? I see. So, just as a total example, if I pick something like a rock, what would happen? Man, I really messed up this time. I hope you were listening.
Yes, I was. I think I know what this game is, but since it's your choice, I will fully explain my reasoning. Let's start with some obviously bad choices. A rock. As he already explained, he is able to change the momentum of the thing, meaning that any heavy object is going to be bad news for us. You may think that something much tamer, such as a feather, is better, but since he can give it infinite speed and summon it wherever he wants, it won't end well either. An atom. One single atom is not dangerous enough on its own, but given enough speed and energy, it can trigger something in the environment, such as a nuclear chain reaction, that would be quite dangerous. This means that anything with mass is a bad choice. Nothing. Literal nothingness cannot be dangerous, but we must keep in mind that he can do anything with this thing, as long as he doesn't change what that thing is. What I mean here is that he can make any amount of this thing. So if he can summon anything of any amount, that also means he controls where and how much of it is placed, meaning he can very easily simply replace you with nothing. That is who we are dealing with here. If you think it is cheating to replace things like this, think of it like this. If you take a pen and draw something here, you will replace what was there before with the color of the pen. In this game, he holds the pen and uses it as he wishes. All we can do is change the color of the pen, the result of his drawing. By these rules, we cannot use anything that can exist in space, which really limits our options. Or so you'd think. There are many more things than there are objects. Danger. The concept of danger is obviously the exact thing we want to avoid, but the concept itself is less dangerous than a rock, as he can't manipulate it with speed or size. However, he can increase its quantity. If the amount of danger is increased, that will create dangerous things. For example, increased danger arbitrarily high and lightning could strike you. He can modify the amount of effect of a concept. Safety. The opposite of danger may seem like an answer, but it can be abused in the opposite way, by removing all possible safety, therefore effectively just increasing danger. Normality. Choosing the balanced option is also not ideal. Not only could he remove normality, therefore plunging the world into chaos, he could also change what normality means. He cannot change the meaning of normality, which is the state of being usual, typical, or expected, but since he can manipulate anything related to normality, he can choose that earthquakes every minute are now normal. Clearly, we need something more abstract. Something that cannot exist. Whether this is an object or a concept, it will always not exist. Therefore, you might think that it cannot affect us. However, counterintuitively, what you have described here is something that can exist. What I mean is that he can turn you into something that cannot exist, because something is vague enough to include objects. If you specify a concept that cannot exist, then he can make any concept not exist. A reality we are not a part of. Here, the object cannot be used, at least not to the extent we can detect, but we can understand the concept. This reality may be somewhere impossible to reach, but we can comprehend that there could be such a thing. Therefore, it can affect us. All that he would need to do is to make it so that the concept of this unreachable reality is everywhere, making you always think about it, making you always think about it, which could lead to paranoia or, at worst, the inability to think about anything but this reality. So, if we cannot win through abstraction, we can try abusing the rules of the game. A thing you cannot manipulate. This one seems quite foolproof, but if we are starting to abuse the rules, he can as well. Besides the fact that the words you and manipulate don't necessarily mean him and the ability to do anything with this thing, he has something even better. See, if we successfully convey that manipulation means any change in any instance of the thing, which is how we would stop him from modifying the thing against us, that would mean he cannot think about this thing. If he did think about this thing, he would, by our definition, manipulate it, because he increased its amount. This means we must either accept that he cannot think about this thing, therefore meaning he never actually receives our reply, or he can think about it, therefore making this thing non-manipulatable, yet being manipulated. This fundamentally breaks the game, therefore it is an invalid answer. In that case, what about conceptual nothingness? Not nothing, no thing. This is, in a way, not an answer because we need to give him a thing. However, if we could get him close to something like this, we may be able to trap him while giving him something that really, truly does not exist. One way to put it would be conceptual nothingness, but that is a concept. Same with the opposite of a thing, or no thing. All of these are concepts we can understand. Perhaps could work, but the issue is that it can be argued to not be a thing, and on top of that, it is extremely hard to convey exactly that. If you say nothing, that's silence. If you write nothing, that's emptiness. You can simply say that since you can't convey it, it isn't a thing. A concept I cannot perceive. You may think that this can defeat the concept attack, but while the concept described by this phrase is imperceptible to you, the concept of a concept I cannot perceive is. No matter how you describe something in a piece of text like this, you can imagine and perceive it. These are several mathematical/technical symbols that have some meaning, but not meaning that can be understood by you. This means that the symbols are meaningless. Unfortunately, it's still something you see. You see that there is a square, a triangle, some circle, so on, meaning he can, once again, make you think about this specific pattern. In that case, we can do something sneaky. Instead of writing something down, we can, without looking, draw some nonsense. What this will do is it will separate us from the concept he will inevitably try to force us to think about, because we have no idea what this concept is. But to fully save ourselves, we will need a few more conditions. This concept must be imperceptible to anything and must not be able to affect anything, while still being perceptible by him and affect him. We can achieve this by saying, this concept cannot be perceived by anything or affect anything except the being that I am intending this information for. By saying that the being is decided by you, we have the power to set him as the recipient and the only one capable of perceiving the concept. This concept must be exactly what is in the image and not related to the idea of us. We can achieve this by saying, the concept's description is entirely contained within the thing that I perceive is the paper I am holding. This way, he cannot use any reasoning that the concept is somehow us holding the piece of paper containing the concept. This concept must not be the concepts of the information used to convey the concept. This was the issue with a lot of previous attempts, and while we literally do not know what the drawing is, he can attempt to get to us by manipulating the fact that we know that there is a thing that we are showing. To do so, we can say that this concept also describes every interpretation of it which uses at least some meaning drawn in what I believe is black ink on what I believe is the paper I am holding. This way, whatever interpretation you use of the concept, it must contain some of the meaning of the drawing we did, which we have not perceived. Finally, we can combine all of the conditions into one final thing. The concept which describes every interpretation of it that uses at least some meaning drawn in what I believe is black ink on what I perceive as the paper I am holding, and whose description is contained entirely within the thing I perceive as the paper I am holding, and which cannot be perceived by anything or affect anything except the being that I am intending this information for. Good choice.